And joining us now is tech expert Dan Sodergren. Dan, so we saw those lessons from Sid Patel there. What do you make of them? Because it seems like a fairly straightforward thing.
Well, yeah, but this is the thing, is that we're not born knowing how to use technology, and this is the I always talk about, the human psychology is more important than the technology. The way that people are using things, but you've got to persuade people to do so. You've got to teach people, you've got to train people, and right now we're in this kind of new world, and we've got to remember that maybe 10 years ago, the sad thing is that government administration didn't put the money into training people, and now that generation, of course, doesn't know how to do it.
But do you think that is the straightforward, simple answer, having these voluntary sessions held at a post office, or do you think it should be something that the government takes on that's a bit more formally arranged?
Well, I think that's the thing, is that the public purse, this is the reason why we pay taxes, etc., isn't it? That we've got to do good for society, the public good. So, yes, there's no way of saying that technology isn't important. It's hugely important. The smartphone, all of these things, the better that you use it, the better your life is. So, therefore, we should have been teaching the last generation, or the quiet generations they may be called, how to use technology. Of course, this is brand new. And I'd say, yes, definitely, that is something the government should be doing now. Remember, there's a great old saying, isn't there, that, plant a tree. The best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago, but the next best time is now. So we can't be doing the same thing again in 10 years' time. We've now got to be teaching people about artificial intelligence in their mobile phones. Lots of stats out there about people who are working, and it's something like 66% of people don't believe they've had enough training from their employee about AI. So let alone the generation before that aren't even in work now.
But that's the thing, because you get all that sort of training if you're in a job, but maybe you don't if you're at home. And I wonder as well, Dan, what responsibility the businesses themselves that are asking us to use this tech should play in providing that training, because ultimately all of this stuff has been pushed online. Yes, there's convenience if you've got a phone and you know how to use it, but it's also making it easier and cheaper for the businesses, isn't it? Pay by phone, if it's parking, order by QR code in a restaurant. It's putting all the onus on the customer, not the business. So surely they should pick up the tab as well.
Well, yes and no to that. This is about a generational gap in education. So that should have been a public sector moment, I believe, anyway. Now, of course, yeah, there are some great savings, and with AI, we can become more and more productive. So, yeah, there is definitely a big thing about shouldn't businesses be paying for the training for their employees? Absolutely. But what we're talking about here is older people who are not employed anymore, and therefore we can't blame the employees of the past or the employees of the past. What we can do is start saying, hey, let's make sure we pick up the tab as people are paying the taxes, but don't just put it onto the volunteers. I love the fact that this is a great story, and I love it. I'm not about coming in and talk about AI technology future work. This is a great story about people for good, not just tech for good. But what I do believe is this should not just be applauded, but rewarded. Yeah. Should the volunteers having to be given their time, well, actually, shouldn't we put a little bit of funding behind them so more people can do it? I don't know what you think.
Well, I wonder if actually there should always be a non-smartphone option. So, for example, yes, I actually don't mind using a QR code at a restaurant to scan the menu and pay for it. But shouldn't there always be an option for people who don't want to do that, like with parking and things? Is there some way of making that, maybe not legislation, but some sort of guidance so that people don't have to go the smartphone route if they don't want to?
Well, I think you're looking at a very, very small percentage of people that don't want to do that. I think there's a huge amount that happens with the smartphone and that make lives a lot easier for a lot of people. For example, not having to type out the website and use a QR code is a great example. QR codes are very easy to use. I think that would take maybe 10 seconds to teach someone how to use a QR code. I think there's also a now movement in the world where we're looking to dumb down away from technology. But let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater here. Let's make sure that we're utilising technology. The next generation, in fact, or older generation, we've got to have a thing like almost like a digital Green Cross code, like a new way of learning, a different campaign where we can teach people how to safely use technology. Because it's great to use technology, but we've got to think about the next level. Can we be using it smartly? Can we be using it safely? There's so many scams, etc., out there at the moment. Are the older generations being taught about all these scams in this new world of the non-trust world they're now in? And I'm not sure they are, and I think that's the bigger danger. I don't think the bigger danger is people not using technology, not wanting to use it, but starting to use it and starting to believe some of the misinformation and disinformation out there. And that's something that I think the government, any government's got to get behind. Interestingly, in Singapore, I'll give you a little stat here. In Singapore, the Singapore government gives everyone, I think it's the equivalent of about £2,000. Anyone over the age of 40, which they consider to be old.
So old.
Yeah, exactly, so old, exactly. Myself as well. I'd get the £2,000 to then learn about technology and AI. And they can then go to the private sector and get that training, but the government gives them the funding. So maybe that's a way of doing it. Obviously, over 40s, you're not necessarily old. That's what I'm going to say.
Thank you for clarifying. Cheers, Dan. Really good to see you, Dan Sodergren.